Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Moisman. Dan, Chelsea nil, Aston Villa nil. FA Cup replay is on the horizon in the coming weeks. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I hate to say I called it,
Yeah,
but
did.
I called it. Anything happen in the world of sport yesterday? Pretty quiet.
Yeah.
No major news. Nothing came to mind. It's one of those days that made me quite grateful that I don't work in sport anymore, I'll be honest. But yeah, no, the big headline obviously is the 0-0 between Villa and Chelsea. I think we're quite lucky to have a replay, to be honest with you, and I think we'll get through at Villa Park as well, because boy oh boy did Chelsea have some chances. But we're still in it. We're still in this competition. There's something about cup competitions that Villa just like to make difficult at the moment. And we're certainly doing that. But I do have a sneaking suspicion that we'll find ourselves in the hat for the fifth round.
Yeah, I would back us at home, mate. I would back us at home, and I think, I was explaining to you before we came on air that at times it felt like it was a league game. The sort of the pace it was played at and how we sort of looked to really just hang on in there for the longest time. I don't think Unai would ever, or I don't think anyone would ever set up a team to sort of lose a game or whatever. But there becomes a moment in a cup tie where you're like, I think I'd take a loss just to avoid that replay. But obviously we're in this situation now, and I think the team shows an incredible amount of resilience and steel. And I think it's kind of as stupid as it sounds. It's a reminder that football is played over 90 minutes, isn't it, mate? Because Chelsea dominated this game for probably 60, 70 minutes of the game. They could have scored 5, even 6, if it wasn't for the best goalkeeper in the world, Emi Martinez, making some just incredible saves. But I feel like we really gave it to them in that last 20 minutes, mate. And we sort of, I think, maybe due to the changes that they made and because they were playing at such an intensity for such a long period of time, they were naturally going to fall off. But we gave them a lot to sort of worry about in that last 20 minutes, mate, didn't we? And, it's a shame, obviously, it wasn't a league game, because I think I'd have sort of walked away from Stamford Bridge last night being happy with the point. But it was an impressive performance. Not an impressive, but it was an impressive result on the most part, I think. As I say, those final 20 minutes I thought were where we really sort of came into our own, mate.
Yeah, it was a really weird one because, as you rightly say, we were clinging out, and we kind of got to the first half, really got through by the skin of our teeth, to be honest with you. Emi makes 5 saves in the first 45 minutes alone. We were really struggling to play out from the back. Chelsea's press was causing us all sorts of problems. Cole Palmer intercepted 2 passes basically in our 18-yard box on his own. There was the one that Longley slid across to him that Emi then made the saves from. And then there's one that Martinez himself kind of cannons off his shins when he's trying to play a pass out to the fullback. And he misses both chances. Cole Palmer alone could have won this game. He could have had a hat-trick, and we probably left it a little bit too late to find our footing. But what that meant is that it kind of came out, despite the kind of momentum of the game and how it had played out in terms of possession and which side was in the ascendancy, that maybe in the end the draw was the fair result. And whilst, as I say, we did probably leave it a little too late, this game in terms of possession was, I think we've only had a lower percentage of possession across the 90 minutes in 4 of the games this season. They were against Arsenal, Brighton, Tottenham and Liverpool, all in the Premier League. We got 42.6% possession, which, is not too bad. It shows that Chelsea dominated the ball for large percentages of this game. But in the last 15 minutes, we really did start to fashion some good chances. Guinea had a couple himself, and it was an interesting game in terms of, it kind of did feel that it was going to be settled in 90 minutes, particularly as the game went on. I genuinely thought that we were going to nick it at the end, but we were kind of unable to apply that finishing touch. It's our second successive goalless draw as well, which, I don't think we can read too much into that. But this Villa team isn't as free-flowing as it once was. And look, that's really not a reason to complain. We've had an absolutely fantastic season. But I did think we'd come back with a bit more bite, a little bit more tenacity, a bit more of the Villa that we saw kind of through the first half of the season. Following that break, I really did think that would do us a lot of favours. But it kind of feels like this game came 4 or 5 days after the Everton one, that there wasn't really that pickup in energy, and it just didn't seem to click like it once did. And as I say, I don't think that's massive cause for concern, but this is kind of becoming less of, I don't want to call it a blip, but yes, since that week where we beat Arsenal and City, Villa haven't been right, and we don't really seem to be showing any signs of clicking out of that. And so, yeah, with more and more games coming, with this game meaning another 90 minutes, you never want to lose a cup tie. I'll never sit there and say, that I'd rather Villa lose a game than have the opportunity to win it at a later date. But that extra 90 minutes against a side like Chelsea, it's not a game we're going to be able to take lightly. Our lineup shows us that. It is an inconvenience isn't the right word, but we could definitely have done without it.
Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. You're not wrong. I think when you look at that bench, man, like it wasn't there. There's, we're quite thin at the moment with injuries and obviously sort of departing players. And I know Dendoncker and Traore haven't been. I mean, Traore especially never really seems to be about. But just to have the option on the bench, I think is always nice. And you look at Chelsea's lineup, you look at the guys they brought on as well, like the fact that you can bring on Chilwell, Mudryk, Broja. And I mean, to be fair, Chelsea did become worse as a result of it, but I think they were tired. But that's not the point I'm making. But like the depth that they've got is kind of scary. Obviously, they brought Carney Maker on as well. And of course, Villa fans reacted totally rationally every time he came out to warm up. I just think let it go, man. Do you know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I understand it, but not for me, all of that. But yeah, it's one of the, like, I think it's a game like this becomes frustrating, mate, because obviously there's the disallowed goal, which, handball, obviously not a lot you can do about that. I think it's fair to say that if we are 1-0 up at that point, it's probably like against the run of play, because Chelsea had 2 or 3 big chances right in the lead up to that as well. There was a really good counter-attacking opportunity as well that we had in the first half, and which was sort of resulted in Tielemans skying the ball well over the crossbar. And I mean, I've not seen that one back, mate, so you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but that felt like it just needed to be a tap-in. Like, it looked like he just absolutely leathered it. He could have put it either side of Petrovic, and I'm sure it would have resulted in a goal, and that would have been nice. But yeah, I think these kind of results are frustrating. Like, if Chelsea dominated for the 90 minutes and you lose 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, I think with how it went yesterday, you could have gone, do you know what? We kind of got what we deserved there. But as I mentioned, mate, the fact that we sort of stayed in the game for as long as we did, and then we, sort of give it to them a little bit, it is a little bit difficult to take, but it is what it is. Can't really complain too much about it. It's, as you said, mate, I back us to win at home in this, to be honest. I think this is a fixture that isn't easy, but is definitely winnable. And I think it was nice. I'm not sure if you saw, mate, but Nassef and Wes were out at the player warm-ups. They got a crazy reaction from the fans, and it's nice to see. It's nice to see because they sort of give us the club back, and you don't really see them at every game. They don't really want to be front and center. Like, they're not. There isn't this sort of like Tony Jaa ego, like, I'm the guy conducting everything, let me be at the forefront. I have a lot of respect for them because they just kind of, you only see them when you need to. Like, I think the big thing that comes to mind is when we announced Emery, mate, isn't it? And obviously you've got Nassef holding the shirt with Unai. And obviously that was quite it was a completely different sort of tone to obviously with Purslow and Gerrard. Like, you could see that it was basically Nassef going, right, let's actually, let's
It's a real tough play, isn't it? It's a
yeah,
real
it is
tough.
100%. It's like I'm laying the law here. This is my guy. Like, we're not fucking about anymore. So, it's nice to see that. Obviously, it's in London as well. So, like, in terms of them guys flying in, them kind of games are always going to be more sort of appealing. And I'd noticed there was like 2 or 3 guys with cameras following them. Was it like a couple of weeks ago that the sort of news came out that we were filming this documentary that we're trying to sell? I'm kind of like, I'm like really for it. I would have really liked a documentary last season. I know you can't like go back in time and change it, but like sort of a fly on the wall Amazon documentary, all or nothing on last season, I think would have been absolutely brilliant. I don't know how I feel about us sort of like doing it and then.
That's the interesting part. I didn't realize that. Is that how this is done? Is that like commonplace? Like, we film it ourselves and then approach people like, hey, do you want to buy this?
It's definitely not how it goes.
No, I've got to admire it. It's outrageous confidence. I'm guessing, like, to be honest, it's kind of one where the club could I think they could well release that themselves, and I think it would do okay. I mean, it's a hell of an editing job putting like a 10-part doc together, but
mate,
no one buys it off you. I think, what a way to sell Villa TV that would be.
Yeah, that's the only way Villa TV is getting my money, by the way. That is the only way they are getting my money. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's one of them, because we're doing it. It's like, is anything actually going to happen? Do you know, like, are we sort of tempting fate by doing it ourselves and not, getting in Amazon or Netflix or, like the guys who do like Full Swing, Drive to Survive, all that. I mean, they've got a lot on their plate, that company, because they've just announced they're doing a whole Major League Soccer documentary for next season, which you would imagine is just 95% based around Inter Miami and certainly Lionel Messi. But yeah, I love them documentaries.
Colorado Rapids, are they? Let's be real.
Hey, they're actually assembling a super team, mate. They got Zach Steffen, Georgie Barlow. Yeah, shout out. I mean, very, very average player, but that's quite a coup for them, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, like, I think the thing with this game and this result, we don't really have a lot of time until the next game. Obviously, we play Newcastle on Tuesday. You guys are probably listening to this on the Saturday. It's just as well, really. I think, with a performance like that, you just kind of need to get on with it, really, don't you, mate? You just have to, you pray the next game comes along, and Newcastle haven't been as formidable away from home as they have been at home, and this will definitely be another very difficult game. But we should be sort of looking for revenge on this one, mate, shouldn't we? Because that 5-1, that it's something that they just hold over our heads. We need to win at Villa Park, get us back on track, and I think when you look at how the fixtures went as well, last week or over the last few weeks, obviously. It was a fairly spread out game week, wasn't it? You look at West Ham dropped points to Sheffield, which is obviously really good for us. You just got to kind of, we're sort of sat in 4th right now, same points as Arsenal. Arsenal have a game in hand. Just got to keep winning and putting pressure on these guys, haven't you?
Yeah, we're starting to really see the table take shape now, and I know that kind of seems crazy given that we've played 21 games, but I think the 3 teams above us are gone, and I know that sounds kind of crazy given that we're on the same points as Arsenal, we're on the same points as City, given that, albeit City have got a game in hand. I think those 3 teams are gone now. I think if we grab 3rd or even second back, something quite incredible has happened. I think it's kind of a straight shootout now between us and Spurs for that 4th place, and given that Spurs, Madders came on off the bench last night for them, they're going to be a real fight. And so our best bet may well be this coefficient spot that may or may not fall to 5th. And it doesn't look great for the Premier League at the moment. And so I think we do have a comfortable buffer now over West Ham. I think we're comfortably the 4th or 5th best side in this league. But it's games like this which are really going to decide just how close run this may be, because although there's plenty of stats to say that we can be more than confident going into this game. You know, Newcastle haven't done the double over us since the 13-14 season. We're unbeaten in our last 6 Premier League home games against Newcastle. We've won the last 4 in a row in that regard and kept a clean sheet in all of those 6 games. We haven't lost to Newcastle at home since that 13-14 season, which was a 2-1 defeat. We've won 16 of our last 17 home games. We haven't lost at home since a 4-2 defeat to Arsenal last February. So we're coming up at a calendar year of being unbeaten at Villa Park, which is just quite remarkable. And then all of that aside, if you put all of the history aside, you look at Newcastle's recent run, they're unbeaten. Sorry, they haven't won, I don't think, in any of the last 4 games. I think they've lost them all. They've conceded 3 goals in each of those games. So this is the longest losing run they've had since January 2021. So going back at least 2 years. And not since December 1965 have they conceded 3+ goals in 4 straight games. And so, but despite kind of all of that, I really don't think that will be easy. They've obviously had that win in the FA Cup kind of sandwiched in there, but their league form hasn't been great, as I said. 4 consecutive defeats in a row. And so it's one where, yeah, despite all of that, I still don't think this is going to be an easy game. I really don't. Kind of feels the same way the trip to Goodison did, in that all of the numbers were pro Villa going into that one. You know, you look at the form that Everton had, and there's just kind of something about these games that never quite feel easy. And I say that it was a very kind of similar feeling going into this game, which was at a similar kind of time last year. It was when we were on that fantastic run under Emery. We got an unbelievable result, really blew them away at Villa Park. I somehow can't see us doing that again. But this win, I think more so than most, given the kind of challenge that Newcastle represent, given that we're often pitted against each other as these 2 sides that are maybe the most likely to kind of permanently disrupt the top 6 if that hasn't been done already. Obviously, we kind of, have been on very similar trajectories kind of the last couple of years. And although they've not had a great season, they're currently sat down in 10th, and any kind of European football looks a long way away. I just think it still represents a real test. And if we can get 3 points, I really think, probably more so than in maybe the Chelsea game or even the Everton game before that, I think a win over Newcastle would really mean a lot for us going into this next run of games.
Yeah, as you say, mate, it's a difficult little run of games. You've got obviously the Newcastle game, Sheffield United away. They're looking like they've got belief. They're playing some good football. I think they've sort of stumbled upon an 11 now, which the guys really seem happy and comfortable with. From what I understand, then it's Manchester United, then it's Fulham away. Again, Fulham away seems to be a bit of a bogey ground for us, really, doesn't it, mate? And when you look at that table, like, it is really important. I know Newcastle are obviously sat in 10th, but they're on 41 points. It's only 2 points behind. Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong number. They're on 29 points. Jesus Christ, I was looking at goal difference. My bad. But like, it's creating daylight with a team that realistically, their ambition is to try and get within the top sort of 5 or 6. That's the point I was going with, and it still rings true. So, to sort of be able to separate ourselves, give ourselves that bit more distance. Obviously, we've got the 3 points on Spurs as well. That's ultimately going to be really important, because I think we actually play Spurs within our next 5 or 6 games in the league, don't we? So, so we've got, after Fulham away, it's Forest at home, Luton away, then Spurs at home. And I think by that point, we'll kind of know where we're at, really, won't we, with where we're potentially looking to finish.
After that, it's West Ham away. So, as you say, that will really kind of set our season, probably, won't it?
It probably, yeah, absolutely, mate, absolutely. So it's important that we get the job done. All that being said, I'm predicting a 1-1, mate. I just think we're kind of in this little... I'm reluctant to call it a rut, because I think there have been moments, flashes maybe, of brilliance, somewhat sprinkled between the performances. But yeah, as you say, things haven't been the same since that Arsenal and City back-to-back. I think in hindsight, it took a lot out of us, them games. That close, mentally, physically, getting the wins in the way that we did. I think as well, it's sort of inadvertently put quite a large amount of pressure on players now, and there is a spotlight and there is an expectation that we go and win these games. And I think we may be a sort of tangling with expectations and reality a little bit. I think people are going to say that we're being pessimistic again. We're not. We're like the most optimistic Villa podcast. That, as you know, that's a lie. Up the Villa podcast is Luke is the most like pro Villa you will meet, and I love him for that. But I just feel like we're not. It feels like it's getting to us, mate. It feels like it's getting to us just a little bit.
You know what's crazy is that kind of, as you say, that, you know, you didn't want to call this a rut, and rightly so. But I think your kind of hesitancy to do that shows just how far we've come. And I was quite glad yesterday to see the kind of sentiment was we only lost twice in September. And even in this period where it hasn't been great, you think after that Arsenal win, which came after the City win, we've only lost once. And in that time, we've picked up wins against Burnley, we've picked up wins against Brentford, we picked up a win in the FA Cup third round. The only defeat was that Boxing Day collapse to Man United. You know, that was just, you know, even we were 2 goals up in the first half. It is crazy what a rut has become to Villa, which is, you know, barring a game, an unbeaten run since that stretches back since the first week of December. And, you know, if you go back to that defeat, which was in September, it was a defeat in the League Cup. It was that 2-1 home defeat to Everton. The form has just been pretty remarkable, really. And I think even a draw, like, you know, the fact that that's considered pessimistic, that we're sat here predicting a draw, and people are like, ah, like a draw against Newcastle for any team in this league is a good result. I don't think there's a team in this league that looks at a point against Newcastle and goes, we really need to be doing better there. They're such a hard team. And so, yeah, I think it kind of, what is pessimistic and what is optimistic has totally kind of changed. And I do think that, yeah, you even kind of going into this game predicting a draw, and if we're looking at that and being pessimistic, then yeah, this club is in a really good place. But
absolutely.
I have a feeling we'll squeak this. I have a feeling we'll do it 2-1. A draw really wouldn't surprise me. I just think the main thing is that we don't lose, mate. I think if we're in this place where even if we're not playing well and we're going largely unbeaten, I think that's a great place to be. I really do.
Yeah. Well, Newcastle got 4th with like 15 draws last season. So it's important you just don't lose games. You're absolutely right. And I mean, it literally took Kevin De Bruyne for Man City to win that game against Newcastle as well. Like, let's not get it twisted. Like, De Bruyne completely turned the game on its head within minutes of stepping on the pitch. So it's one of them. Like, even, you know, the champions elect basically are struggling against Newcastle. So it's one of them. But yeah, I think there's definitely reason to be optimistic about it, mate. And yeah, I mean, just about the club in general. Obviously, there was 150th anniversary news that came up, mate. Wasn't there? They announced the advisory boards. Would you like to run us through that, mate? Well, you know, there's some interesting names on there, isn't there?
Yeah, this is fun. So this was kind of the first step in our 150th anniversary celebrations. It's kind of comprised of a bunch of different people to do with the club, from players, managers, people to do with the foundation, fan representatives, and they say they'll play 3 key roles, and they'll provide input and planning into designing events and activities, I'm assuming to do with the 150th anniversary celebrations. They will represent the club at celebrations and formal occasions and that sort of thing. And then the third one, which is probably the most interesting, is supporting with communication and media activity related to the anniversary celebrations. So the board is quite interesting. You've got the best title on there is the Lord King of Lothbury, Mervyn King, Guy Rippon, who's been Villa's head of the foundation since 2016. He's done some amazing work kind of throughout the EFL, spent some time at Cobb. He's in there. Marisa Ewers as well, from playing in Villa's women's team, helped us earn promotion back to the WSL. We won the FA Women's Championship in her first season. Rob Bishop, who's a big name in there for amongst fans, has been a journo for the Birmingham Mail, Birmingham Post. He's been covering the Villa for a lot of the years. Ian Taylor and Brian Little need no introduction on this podcast. Dennis Mortimer, the captain of the 1982 European Cup winning side, in there as well. Catherine Merry, who's an athlete. She was born in Warwickshire. She represented GB at the Sydney Olympics. She's in there. My personal pick of the bunch is Thomas Hitzelsberger, who I just think is amazing, a real hero of mine. Joined Villa as an 18-year-old from Bayern Munich in 2000. Bit of a cult hero, the Hammer. And then obviously since he retired, he's come out as gay. He's been an amazing representative for the LGBTQ plus community. So I'm delighted that he's in there. I think he could be a real advocate for the club, and I think I'd love to see him do more with going forward. Guri Nandra as well, another local and integral part of the Punjabi Villains, has done some great job with those guys, and one of the most vocal Villa fan groups kind of associated with the club. Aaron Jones, who's head of the Villa Disability Supporters Association as well, really passionate about accessibility to do with the club, and I think a voice from that side of the community is always a good thing. Then there's Pam Bridgewater, who's been, I think, in an administrative role with the club. She's one of the kind of coordinators, has been there for a number of years, kind of dedicated her life to the club. And then David Bridgewater as well, has been a Villa supporter since the early 1960s, contributed to the Villa News and Record, a lot of voluntary roles to do with the club. So there's a real range there of people that have kind of dedicated either portions of their lives or in some cases their entire lives to the Villa. I think it's a really, really interesting bunch. I think the club have done a great job of ticking off kind of every box, to be honest with you. And I just think it's a great group of people that I just wanted to shout out on the pod, to be honest with you, mate.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And, you know, you need people that have that deep connection to the club. And I feel like, as you say, mate, there's a great spread there. I don't think you could ask for better ambassadors. And it's going to be interesting to see how all this plays out, isn't it? Especially with the badge, and because I'm sure you've seen that sort of leaked badge that sort of looks like it's on the shirt. It does look better than the sort of badge that got leaked, doesn't it? It looks a bit better. So I think, you know, we can be somewhat optimistic about our sort of outlook on the 150th anniversary, and it should be celebrated regardless, because that is gargantuan. It's absolutely amazing. So guys, if you enjoyed this episode of the Villa Filler podcast, let us know. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. You'll probably hear from us. I mean, if there's a transfer rumour, maybe before Tuesday, but if not, it'll probably be late Tuesday, early Wednesday, I'm probably thinking, because that is going to be a long one. But yeah, if you enjoyed, guys, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple, Spotify, follow, download, share with your friends. It all helps. And yeah, up the Villa.